Welcome to the Fort Collins Book Fest 5-year celebration. My name is Ian Holmes. I am the Adult Services Librarian at the Old Town Library here at the Poudre River Public Library District. And today we're celebrating the first 5 years of the Fort Collins Book Festival, a virtual celebration of books and brews, writings and riffs, food and thought, big science, and the great outdoors. As always, we are also celebrating the importance of literature, writing, books, and our libraries. Check out the virtual program at www.focobookfest.org. We have over 20 sessions and 4 workshops, all free, book talks, discussions, panels, prose, and poetry readings. Make sure you attend as many as you can. And before we get to our session, I'd like to thank our sponsors. This festival could not happen without our generous sponsors. They make the book festival completely free. You can check out the entire list at the end of this session. Today's event is produced by the Poudre River Public Library District in partnership with the CSU Morgan Library. Our presenting sponsor is the City of Fort Collins Fort Fund, and further support has been provided by the Friends of the Poudre Library District, Friends of the Morgan Library, the Lilla B. Morgan Endowment Fund, the Downtown Development Authority, Anne and Bruce McDonald, Liggett, Johnson and Goodman PC, Front Range Community College, FOCO MA, Downtown Fort Collins Creative District, the Gardens at Spring Creek, Old Firehouse Books, and of course our media partners, KUNC and 105.5 The Colorado Sound. We'd like to give a special thanks to the Northern Colorado Writers for presenting all 4 of our writers' workshops. So thank you so much to all of them, and thank you to you for supporting our 5th annual FOCO Book Festival. Now I am extremely excited to present the work and the man himself of Idris Goodwin. He is an award-winning breakbeat poet, a playwright, director of the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center at the Colorado College. In addition, with the recently released poetry collection, Can I Kick It?, he's had several publications with Haymarket Books, including Inauguration, co-written with Nico Wilkinson, Human Highlight, Ode to Dominique Wilkins, and the play This Is Modern Art, co-written with Kevin Cavall. He's appeared on HBO Deaf Poetry, Sesame Street, NPR, BBC Radio, and the Discovery Channel. His plays include And in This Corner, Cassius Clay, How We Got On, Hype Man, and This Is Modern Art. Idris is the co-host of the Same Old New School podcast on Vocalo Radio. And I am extremely excited to now present the performances from the wonderful Idris Goodwin.
Hello. I'm well. How you doing?
Good.
Could I have a black coffee, please, to go?
Yeah, sure. What size do you want?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Great. What's the name?
Idris.
Can you say it again?
Idris.
Okay. Great.
Thank you. I always thought the name came out of a book. My mother still has it. It's crude and it's orange and it says African names. Now inside African names, it says something like Idris means immortal, but I don't think that's right. My mother's name is Patricia. My father's name is Donald. Their parents are named Thelma, James, Ruth, and also James. They wanted us to have names with throat and vowels. In Detroit, the name was a minority. The black church asked, why you get that boy that Muslim name? Why you get that boy that African name? There are names in the good book, strong apostle names. There are names in the phone book, strong regular names. In the suburbs, the name was a minority. My middle American classmates asked, now is it Idris, is it Iris, is it Ivan, is it Isidore, is it Ivan, is it Iggy? How about I just call you I? Can I just call you E? Can I just call you something other than your name? Age 11, I asked my mom if I can change my name to something else. Mark, Tony, Sean, something else. Being named Idris in North America will arrest people. You must grow patience. That's so unusual. What an exotic name. It sounds Turkish, it sounds Greek. Are you Muslim? Age 16. 2 Arab dudes come through my register. They get big-eyed when they see my name tag. They're curious, how did the name make its way to a Target in suburban Michigan? They're disappointed when I tell them about the book, African Names. Some 10 years later, I'm in the Middle East where they pronounce it beautifully. Not all straightened and flattened, they've given it a joyful bounce. Idris is a prophet in the Quran. age 20. I'm new to Chicago. I'm cleaning cigarette butts out of a restaurant urinal for minimum wage. My boss is a giant stereotype of a man in a turtleneck, sport jacket, dark glasses, and a thick as Mike Ditka's mustache Chicago accent. He unzips at my urinal, the one I just cleaned, and then he says, I ain't gonna remember that name of yours. How about I just call you Eddie? And my name became Eddie. But then his assistant suggested he stop for fear I might claim cultural insensitivity. The gentleman from the UK tells me the Welsh have a myth. There's Morocco's Moulay Idris, the jazz world's Idris Muhammad, television's Idris Elba. How do you say it? That's so unusual. What does it mean? Prophetic cashier. What does it mean? Philosophic cleaner of urinals. How do you say it? That's so exotic. How do you say it? How do you say it? How do you say it? I call myself Idris, like my mama says it. She's probably not saying it right.
Hello, everyone. This is Idris Goodwin, broadcasting live from my basement. Just full disclosure, this is not my artwork behind me. This is work painted by my mother-in-law, Anita Chavez. She has graciously loaned her art studio to me to be my poetry studio. I'm going to be sharing pieces from Can I Kick It book that came out last October, so roughly a year ago, on Haymarket Books, part of their Breakbeat Poets series. Myself, along with Kevin Koval, coined the terminology Breakbeat Poet, which has since spawned numerous anthologies. And really all it is that we are sort of laying claim to hip hop's influence on us as writers. Hip hop's, approach to lyric, approach to theme and topic, persona, etc., has greatly influenced us in how we write. Can I Kick It is very much, sort of about hip hop and pop culture and sort of the act of commenting on the world around you in real time. But it is also looking upon it as been like sort of eerily, very much in conversation with where we're at right now in 2020. So I'm going to start with a couple of poems about hip hop, and we'll slowly get even more topical into conversations around race and the political dialectic. So I'm going to open with, I'm going to start with a piece called TROY, Troy, which takes its name from a song by the hip hop group Pete Rock and CL Smooth, which is a tribute song about a fallen member of their musical family. And it starts with a quote from the rapper Post Malone, pop artist Post Malone. If you're looking for lyrics, if you're looking to cry, if you're looking to think about life, don't listen to hip hop. Troy. LL Cool J showed me how to fold arms, plant sneakered feet. Pete Rock and CL Smooth showed me how to reminisce a mosaic of moments. KRS-One, Public Enemy, X-Clan, Big Daddy Kane, and Queen Latifah helped me identify Africa on a map where Brooklyn, Compton, and the Fifth Ward at. Black Thought, Lauryn Hill, Royce da 5'9", Metal Face Doom, Outkast, A Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Del the Funky Homo Sapien, made English a dance floor. I could go on and on till break, dawn, meet dusk. But maybe I'm just an old head, neck sore from looking back. Maybe the trap is a cloak, and the pools produced by tear tattoos too shallow to dive deep. Or maybe we've been here before, suffering the non-believers, auto-tune filtered, every imperfection removed. So it may or may not have been mentioned or be known to everyone, but in addition to being a breakbeat poet, I'm also a playwright. And so often my poetry, I write in the voices of people that I am not. So I have a series of pieces in here that I'm going to share, and I'm just going to go one into the next, that are in the voices of pop culture figures. So again, more recently we've seen statues coming down and petitions being written to have those statues replaced. And so these are a couple pieces that were written in 2017 when some of those petitions were going around replacing Columbus. So the first one is called More Statues Need High Heels. And it was based on a petition that was going around St. Paul, Minneapolis area around replacing a Christopher Columbus monument with a monument to Prince, the musical artist. So this is a poem written in the voice of a statue of Prince. More statues need high heels. Dearly beloved, you're gathered under my purple gaze against this twin city gray. You birthed this monument, copy and pasted me over another. Explorer, I too searched for new land, stood stern, firmly scanning a new plateau. I got lost too, but I looked to the moon. It always led me to you. And when I got to you, I did not terrorize, I played you a tune. And now let us resume. Bodies weren't built to last, but in this form, I can remind you daily. A blank face may say it all, and two cheeks say even more. Do not smile when a smirk is necessary. If you must, when you must throw shade over the blinding glow of mediocrity, throw it hard. Know all the colors in the prism, feel the fabrics on the loom, live between funk and rock, Batman and Joker. Between masculine, feminine, let the world know you're being enslaved when your output is held captive, running its strings across bars. But do become a slave to exploration. Get lost, feel the waves below the hull, guide until you hit land. Climb down, let your Andre #1 heels collide with sand of this land only new to you. Listen for the metronome, and when invited, release all the past inside. All your Bootsy and Jimmy and James will kick sand to win. Your fingerprint etched onto every grain will be carried across the Great Lakes, across interstates, farms, mountains, swamps, and sewers, curbs, corners, out car windows, up the side of the highest rises, through the antennas and out across the galaxy. Bodies weren't meant to last, but the reverb dance eternal. But I have gone astray. Forgive me, I am dreaming. As I say this, dreaming, as explorers do, through all space, through all time. In Virginia, there's a petition to replace a statue of Christopher Columbus with a statue of Missy Elliot. The rain. He how. He how. You even let it go this long. Extended version, mixed good, but mastering wrong. It's tragic, which is why I laugh. He how you let it get this bad. Appreciate the ask, but statues can't dance, and you know how I like to shake my future and past. The great fake late explorer limb chopper kiss my ass. I appreciate the honor, know the feelings imperative. Rebel flags still flapping, belt buckles still snapping. Statues drop out like bass lines, come back down, but hate they can't bury it. Until they do, this black woman rap like the headdress on Harriet Tubman. My body stay bumping, statues can't go clubbing. So instead put a speaker where that imposter stands. Bump my jams across colonial land. Let the reverb disturb the buried. The disease they carried plus the echo who follow. Let my bounce caress the bruises, every wound nurse it. Whips, handcuffs, put that thing down, flip it, reverse it. I live to make you feel alive. That's all I'm down for. Don't prop me outside, I can't stand the downpour. In that last piece, I evoked the name Harriet Tubman, one of our truly extraordinary revolutionary icons, consistently written about, and recently came up in the news yet again when this artist, this guy named Kanye West, said something about her not really freeing slaves or whatever, but he evoked her name again. And so this was earlier this year. And what was eerie is that this next poem I'm going to read to you was written in 2018, based on something Kanye West said. And so he had not evoked the name of Harriet Tubman at the time. So the quote he says is, when you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sound like a choice. That was May 2nd, 2018. I immediately wrote a poem imagining Harriet Tubman talking to Kanye West. Harriet Tubman to Kanye West. My lights flash when my eyes squeeze. My head spin, I've been nodding since that headbanger blow to my dome. Since then, the sky known my name. I had bars too, linked iron, hard knocks, wild, vivid colors when things went black. Misunderstood, I too operated along edges splintered dead by winter. Some black folk thought I was crazy too. My exploits brought fear, but I died pistol grip for the people. I too wide and how comed and maybe'd. I too had the audacity of free thought, the audacity to fantasize dark and holy fantasies outside the twisted white line. They called me Moses, original rebel renegade, must stay teeth, must stay, fighting the century to widen the breadth of choice. You got all the eras at your fingertips. You can push the culture at the press of play, can blend what exists to transcendence like we took the worst parts and built portals. If we hadn't stepped in, we'd still be inside the intestines, blind and burning as we suffocate inside the bowels, but we crawled up from the crock pot's bottom. We did this for you. We risked removal. We endured, were chopped and screwed, distorted like a sample. Didn't have time to slow jam or press bodies close. During your accident, we whispered a message through the wire. Save this one. He has work ahead. You were spared instrument bruised to never forget, always rewind. Listen to the voices on the track before saying a word. Obviously, to be an artist in moments like these and times like these is very complicated. To make art, I think one has to step back a little bit, has to abstract the cold, hard reality, find a way in, or at least this is how I work. I'm very conceptual, I tend to be. And as, the occupant of a Black body, it can be hard sometimes to separate the artist from the person, and sometimes I don't always want to make art out of things that I'm feeling. However, what I'm finding to be really wonderful about publishing, or building a catalog of work is sometimes the work that you've done in the past can help you speak to what you're feeling now, if that makes any sense. So, in this book, there's a lot of, much like the Troy piece I read, there's a lot of poems that take their title from existing, pop culture or other art, right? And I'm doing that intentionally on purpose. So there's this Liam Neeson movie, or a few Liam Neeson movies called Taken. And so I'm having some fun with that title, Taken. And so this is a piece called Taken. The takers talking about some take the country back, because all they know is take. Took away lands from the indigenous, took the Indian and saved the child, took the profile, the headdress, the names, the prophet, took Africans, took the Bible, made it a noose, took the cross, set it blazing, took Japanese, took Semitic lives, took limbs of poplars, adorned them with bleeding ornaments, took pictures, took time to hear the case, heard the case, took it to the furnace, hid ashes under the bed, took the sheets off and cut eye holes. Take and take this, take that, took jazz, blues, dance, moves, dap, dab, and made them cornball. Whack ass, Pat Boone, Elvis, Vanilla Ice, Justin Timber take. took publishing, took credit, took up all the space, all four walls of the library, all the gunpowder in the cannon. And when we took samples for our raps, you took us to court when it is you who took them cookies out the cookie jar. Take that, take that, take that. Take our leaders to the grave, take their visages, dismember, distort, appropriate their message, use their message to sell this, sell that. Need to take a seat, take a step back, but you cannot take it in the dark. So you cry about taking when all you do is take this, take that. But we won't be took, hoodwinked, or bamboozled. We can't be taken to the river and told not to drink. We hungry, never thirsty, ice cube over the phone. Special set of skills, homie. All of us won't be, cannot be, never ever again taken. So, obviously it goes without saying that, I think a lot about the constant narrative of threat towards Black people, individuals. And it shows up a lot in my writing. It can't not become something that I constantly wrestle with. And so, much like hip hop music, is a reportage on the condition, it is also a celebration, a celebratory act of a defiance to the forces that are attempting to suppress you, much like Lucille Clifton's very famous poem where she says, won't you celebrate with me everything that has tried to kill me and so far has failed. I'm probably misquoting it by a word or two, but you get the sentiment. We're very much in that tradition. So here's a couple poems. This is a two-part poem called Breaking Sweat. Part 1, cardio. I have joined a gym. Exercise an occasional fling, a once in a while. Oh, you again. But the life expectancy of a Black man is 67. On that treadmill, I walk, not too fast, just trying to warm up. The televisions lined above peer down smirking as I increase speed, cautiously, taking it easy, not trying to be no hero. Above, today's latest cell phone video is dissected. Opposing neckties, side by side, vertical rectangles ping-pong their way through the familiar. Closed caption tries to keep up. I am walking a little faster now. A new headline, visual, the desert blows a thin beam of smoke back up toward the sky that struck it. Before commercials for insurance and faster internet. Around me, machines whir and bodies grunt and grasp for air, a symphony pushing its presence through the hip-hop in my headphones. When we return, the CDC says certain threats are inevitable. Certain viruses have our names and addresses. So do these drones we are told we're destined to meet. Now I'm jogging, slowly, Inside my headphones, Kendrick Lamar declares our survival. But I ain't here to be all right. $30 will not be directly withdrawn from my checking account on a monthly basis for all right. Nah, we gonna be better than all right. All of us under these fluorescent lights, the other new parents out to acquire hourglass, the wounded warriors learning new limbs, the seniors here to shake the all right colors from their straining tendons. We look down to watch numbers slowly make their climb. Calories, heart rate, elapse, time. We add up death tolls along borders and deserts, but also classrooms and even city streets on a Sunday morning. And we in this workshop, this body shop, this sweat house of best intention, this church of kinetic holiness, we thank God for that safety as we sweat, each of us, running for our lives. Part 2, another Black body. This body is mine, but also political. When it stands, how it walk with a bop that's centrifugal. This body was once considered 3/5 of a human's. This body birthed by a woman who was birthed by a woman in a city of black alloy. This body fled before the rust settled. This body nomadic, moving through zip codes propelled by static. This body don't do neckties. It wears hoodies, ball caps, t-shirts, sneakers. This body needs freedom. This body stay in headlines, hunted, some say, hated, some say. This body celebrated when adorned with gold and vests, 9-shot ventilated by Smith and West. This body no hunger, this body starved, yes. This body get stress, this body knows love, shows love, never held guns, never sold drugs. This body is black since birth, African, American. This body got the DNA of a slave master. This body got a master's degree and still ignorant, sometimes foolish, full of it. This body push iron and keep trying. This body's a gazelle. This body's a lion. This body's a prayer to never know a cell. Got blood, got heart. This body keep moving. This body's a shark. This body's an ocean. This body swings, grooves, moves, rhythm, slides, electric. This body don't know how to Dougie. This body get ugly, don't pop bottles, not bubbly. This body pop and lock. They trying to lock this body to a gurney. This body needs attorneys. It's known rivers searching for the mountaintop. This body trying to know itself. This body survives, endures, makes mistakes. Wasn't no mistake. This body got two hands that clap, salute, give dap. Two hands, black hands sighted, become fists, legs that sprint when the rope get ignited. Political, the subject and headline, a force that's centrifugal. Behind the hashtag, this body is mine. To protect, to cherish, mine, to deprive. This body is fed well. This body is alive. Thanks, y'all. Oh, the book is called Can I Kick It? It's backwards, but it says Can I Kick It? Available anywhere they be selling books. Peace.
Thank you all so much for being able to view those incredible performances by Idris Goodwin. We are exceptionally lucky to have him with us today, to be able to talk to him about his work, about his process, really about anything. So we are, looking forward to you sending in your questions right now. And I'll just start us off here with something I've been wondering, which is, Idris, is it true that you came up with the term breakbeat poetry? And how did that term or genre come about?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a true fact. I was on the phone call with my good friend and fellow poet, Kevin Koval. And he and I have been very good friends for a long time. And we were just talking about, our generation, what we had to say, et cetera, et cetera. And just in that conversation, I said, well, we came up on hip hop. Hip hop was the platform where we began to explore our voices, right? Like some people, it was starting a rock band. Some people, it's like, starting their own journal. And when they're still in high school, some people stage plays in their backyard. They write, for us, we started exploring our creativity, writing raps, writing over beats. And that led us to learn more about, the lyrical tradition, right? It led us to read, Dudley Randall's Black Fire and Sonia Sanchez and all that, So I said, we're breakbeat poets because hip hop was founded on the breakbeat, right? And so our attack on language is informed by that rhythmic know-how and that constant connection to audience. And so that kind of popped off from there. And then in 2010, I put out a hip hop album called Breakbeat Poems. And that was, I believe, probably the first time it's been sort of locked into something, and then in 2011, I had a book called These Are the Breaks, and there's a essay in there called Breakbeat Poetry. And then Kevin Koval, Nate Marshall, and Quresh Ali Lansana co-edited the Breakbeat Poets Anthology. And since then, there have been 4 volumes of Breakbeat Poet Anthologies. The most recent one is called Latinx, which is all poets that are self-identified as part of, Latin American, Latinx lineage. And so, and that was co-edited by Willie Perdomo, Jose Olivares, and Felicia Rose Chavez, who's also my wife. So it's a movement at this point. It's a dedicated imprint on Haymarket Books. And really what we're trying to do is we're just trying to cultivate a new audience. We're trying to feed an existing audience, but also cultivate a new audience and cultivate an audience for us that, when we were coming up, it was just this constant, pointless argument about, performance poetry or slam poetry or hip hop, and it's like, we're sort of done having that conversation. And we're like, listen, there are people who feel us and get where we're coming from. And we'll just take those people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're good. So that's what we're doing. And it's been really exciting to watch and very effective. And if any of you are on Instagram, definitely follow the hashtag Breakbeat Poets, because you see the movement and everyone, posting pictures of their books or their poems or their gigs or whatever. And you see it's a real international movement that has become, which we're very proud of.
Now, when you're writing, do you start with the beat, or do you sometimes start with the beat, sometimes start with words? How does
Yeah,
how does your
no.
process work?
No, it's I'm conceptual too. So I'm like, what's my take on this thing? I try not to sometimes it's commentary, but most of the time I try to think conceptually about what's my attack on this. So the poem about the statue's poem was like, instead of just writing a thing saying good riddance Christopher Columbus statue, I was like, let me try to engage in, how would Prince feel about being a statue? What would Prince say as a statue? And similarly, Missy Elliot, And so those are my sort of conceptual attacks. Kanye West and Harriet Tubman, it was like, and this was before he even evoked Harriet Tubman. He says slavery was a choice. And I'm like, I imagine that someone who was a former enslaved person would probably beg to differ. So that was the attack on that one. With book, with poems, I definitely started in the traditional rap space of like, here's a beat and I'm going to write to this beat most of the time. With things like Can I Kick It with the book, I am the beat, my heartbeat. Like there's an urgency, a push. There's an urgency that I bring to it when I read it. And that's the beat, you know what I mean, so to speak. So to me, it's like there's always a beat, even when there's no beat. The difference for me is that when I rock over a beat, it's like I just have a dance partner to consider. So actually I collaborate with a great group called Rhythm Science Sound out of Louisville. We created the Can I Kick It mixtape as like sort of another promotional tool. So if folks want to check that out, I can throw the link in the chat. It's like pay what you can. So, or you can just stream it from Bandcamp. But if you want to hear some of these poems with beats underneath them, but that happened after the book was already published, but it's also a different experience to hear it. They did some wonderful production and really married these poems to music in some really cool ways.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I've got another question for you coming in from the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Your work has been described as an anthem for the generation you dub, A Tribe Called Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tell us about that generation and what does it look like to you and who are among this generation?
Tribe Called Tomorrow. So that's a reference to a poem that's in the book. It's a really big, massive poem. I was in my epic moment, and I wrote this poem shortly after the last election because there was a lot of despair and a lot of concern, the divisiveness that was really prevalent throughout, the 2008, all the way through, was really starting to eat at me. And so, I dub it as anyone who is interested in thinking about a different reality, and what are our values and what are our, how do we want to live and what do we use as our, what is our approach to education? What is our approach to solidarity? What is our approach to civil discourse and disagreement? What is our approach to war, right? And so it's just letting my mind sort of imagine and be in that utopic space of, let me lift myself out of this moment and think about a tomorrow or beyond. And that's honestly where I try to live most of the time is, and I think that is very much a condition, I think all people do it, but certainly that is a condition of Black folks and Black art. If you look at Afrofuturism and all that, there's a lot of our, Obama ran on hope, we're a very tomorrow kind of people, and certainly in my art, that comes up a lot, increasingly too.
It sounds like critical thought is kind of just critical to your work. Just being able to sort of think into the future, think about what are the implications about, what do you have going on? Is that correct?
Yeah. I think that's an accurate thing to say. I mean, it helps me just process the world. It's my craft, and I want to be a master craftsman. But it also is personal too. But I've also reached a place in my career or in my artistry where I sort of have found a way to have it be therapeutic and also productive. And if I can't find a conceptual way to attack a subject, then I just don't. Then I'm like, okay, I just need to be upset about this until I'm not anymore.
I've got another question coming from Facebook.
Okay.
How do you describe your poetry's relationship to music and vice versa?
How do I describe my poetry's relationship to music? So I believe that the human voice is and speech is musical. Um, and that was always been my draw, like I'm just drawn to sound and speech and the sound of words, the repetition of words, music, musicality, so I'm definitely in that lyric poet tradition, that tradition, that lyre carrying, ballad saying, traveler, extoller of the town story, the town stories, et cetera, et cetera. I'm definitely, I would say, more in that tradition for sure, unapologetically.
And I've got another good question here, one that I've been wondering myself, which is, who are some poets that you admire and read yourself?
Oh my gosh. Everybody in the Breakbeat Poets anthologies 1, 2, 3, and 4. Everybody on the Breakbeat Poet series. I mean, Camon, Kevin, Jose Olivares, Jamila Woods, just everybody I'm running with, Willie Perdomo. These are the folks that I think are super dope. I also, love poets of the Black Arts Movement, Ntozake Shange, Sonia Sanchez, Nikki Giovanni, Amiri Baraka, Hakeem Matabuti, and then I like regional poets a lot too. There's this writer out of Minneapolis, Ed Bockley, whose work I really love, and Balfi is another Minneapolis poet I really enjoy. Yeah, Jason Bayani. Who's my guy? Patrick Rosal. Patrick Rosal is a real one. So yeah, these are the folks that I really rock with.
Excellent. And what do you think is the unique superpower of breakbeat poetry to affect social change in our current times?
Because we're poets of the people. Hip hop comes from the people. It's the word of the street, good, bad, or ugly. You know what I'm saying? And that's why it resonates. That's why it's universal, because every city has a ghetto, every, and hip hop to me is the perfect balance between protests and partying, celebration. And it's really about a celebration of life, which is really about an insistent and a resistance to death, right? Like, despite all the oppressive tactics and suppressive tactics, and the constant pressure to assimilate and to silence oneself, the music, the culture really demands you be present and that you represent, right? And so, I think everybody's creative. Not everyone dedicates their life to the craft. Once you dedicate your life to the craft, the question is to what end and for what purpose, right? Myself, I feel like I was, that I'm giving these abilities for a reason. I don't think that they're my own. I think that, the ancestors, push me to do it and need me to do it. And, in my work, my work's been saying Black Lives Matter for a long time. So that's what I think it's about. And breakbeat poetry is really about that sense of urgency, to the urgency to be present, to be seen, to be heard, to be made central, and to tell the stories of your people, right? You tell the stories of the people who feel the same way, and challenge a dominant narrative, to deepen and alter the dominant narrative. For example, the dominant narrative for a long time was that that Native Americans just were gone, right? There are parts of the world, parts of the country that believed that and believe that. And there's a reason for that, right? So when Native artists, painters, sculptors, rappers, poets are making their work and putting it out there, they're saying, no, we're here, and this is what we're talking about, and this is what's going on, and you cannot You know what I'm saying? Like, you cannot make us road signs and treat us like we're these mythical creatures that don't exist anymore. You know, it's like you have to deal with us. You have to deal what this country did to us. So, you know, I think, you know, breakbeat poetry invites and celebrates and asks the individual to stand in their all, you know, the fullness of their culture, good, bad, or otherwise.
Kind of what is your take on kind of the some people's demand for incremental change versus other people's demand for sudden change? How do you sort of view that dichotomy?
Yeah, that's a good. I think that change is. So we say this word change, right? And I'm gonna do a kind of a borderline dad joke metaphor here, right? It's not a joke, but it's like dad pun thinking. So, you know, you go to a store, you pay with cash, you get change, right? And the change is basically the difference between, you know, what the price is and what you have, right? So much like for all of us, the change is always going to be a different amount, right? Because we want different stuff. We went in the store to get different things, right? You know, and listen, there are some people that want a different kind of change. The Proud Boys and certain individuals, they want a certain kind of change, right? It's not the same change we want, right? So it's about conversation. It's about influencing hearts and minds that can then influence policy. And it's about all of us identifying what our skills are, what we contribute. It's about us, you know, just working, doing the work, man, listening, telling, you know, reflecting, telling our stories, listening to stories, creating platforms for other people's stories. And that's it, man. You know, that's the work. And the change just is. It just is. We're never not changing. The question is just, what do we want to change, and how do we want, like, and when do we want it? Well, the chant says we want it now, but to want and to receive are different things. And I think it's only about the want. I think it is only about the pursuit. It is only about the push up the hill. You never really reach the top. You just push. And then when you get weak and your legs start hurting and you fall off, somebody's there to pick up where you had to leave off, you know, and that's what it is.
Love that perspective.
Thank you.
We've got another question from Facebook. Sue Ellen asks, did you perform at slams? I used to go to those a lot. Did performance sharpen your poetry? Because they seem intertwined.
That's a great question. Not really. I'll be honest. I was around slam scene a lot in Chicago, but I was around a lot of scenes. I was involved in the hip hop music scene. I was involved in the theater scene. I was doing a lot of filmmaking back in the day. You know, I was in a lot of circles and scenes because I had such a hunger for that as a younger person. And all of it, but my core is, you know, my core is writing raps. It's like, you know, okay, the beat is on a 4/4 time. You know, how do I arrange what I'm going to say to work to that metronome? How am I going to arrange, you know, what syllables will sound strange if I, you know, say it in the wrong spot, or if I use a word that has too many syllables or whatever, right? That's the core. And then I remember hearing the poet Saul Williams, who came out of the slam, and then that introduced me to this whole world of slam in Chicago. Dennis Kim, Kevin Colville, you know, Quraysh, well, not really Quraysh, but like Marvin Tate, you know, Avery R. Young. There was this whole world, you know, that was really more like, you know, here's okay, let me back up. I want to answer this question again differently. So orality and performance of the poetic and language is the cornerstone of diasporic letters and ritual. So that's basically, put another way, all the slam was sort of basically the white version of what Black folk been doing forever. They just put scores on it. So slam was a construction. It was an idea. It was a great idea as a way to get people to listen to poetry and care about it. But I come out of that lineage. You know, I come out of like my pastor up there sweating, you know, saying stuff, and rappers, and, you know, just hearing all my uncles and aunts staying up late playing cards, you know, and rap music, you know, and all that. And so when I got to slam, I was like, I recognize what a lot of this is. But I've only participated in one slam. and I didn't score well. So I was like, this is not for me. But I used to host a ton of slams in the youth scene. Like I was very heavy involved in the Louder Than a Bomb and that whole youth poetry slam world. And I was doing a lot of like, bout hosting and stuff like that. And so I love what it does, particularly for young people in youth communities.
Now, have you had the chance to see some of the young folks that you've mentored and you've worked with sort of grow, and what's it like seeing them come into their own and gain some notoriety?
It's incredibly satisfying. I mean, Nate Marshall, who teaches English at Colorado College, I remember when he was like a high school student doing poems, and I saw his maturation, and now he's on his second book, which is getting a lot of love. It's called Finna. And so, yeah, you see it, you love to see it. We're doing a reading in Denver in November. Myself, Kevin Koval, Jessica Helen Lopez, who's a poet out of New Mexico, who's featured in the BreakBeat Poets for Latinx, and also Penelope Alegria, who was the Youth Poet Laureate of last year, and she's got a book coming out on the series called it's right on the tip of my brain, Milagro. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, I've got a question that I've been sort of wanting to ask and just been curious about for a while for any sort of artist. Yeah. And that's, have you ever come across your own work kind of unexpectedly in the wild?
What do you mean?
So, I've heard of musicians who will hear their music be played over a commercial, and they'll say, this sounds familiar. Like, yeah. Have you ever just sort of come upon it unexpectedly?
Not really. I mean, most of the time, people, it's so funny in this moment now with social media, everybody tags everybody. So I'll tell you, I'm always surprised when anybody wants to spend time with anything I create, even after all this time. So when somebody tags the work, on social media or something, I feel really great about it. It's really satisfying. So if anybody has the book and wants to do that, please do that. Know that I'm watching, and it brightens my day most of the time.
That's awesome. And how has social media changed sort of the nature of the work you do and the things you're involved with?
I mean, listen, man, my book came out a year ago, and I had my wife had a baby around the same time. So I said, I'm going to go very, very regional and very light, in the fall. And then I'm going to go heavier in the spring. And that didn't happen. So it is only because of social media and all of this that I even can do a book tour, a virtual book tour, which is weird and not as, has its pluses and minuses, but, so yeah. And then, and much like I said before, we're trying to build an audience, we're trying to really build an audience, a consistent audience. And social media is how we've been able to do that and stay connected,
Absolutely. I've got that segues into a question we've got from Facebook, which is sort of, how has the pandemic changed or affected your work or the way you think about creating work?
I'll tell you this, I'm very appreciative to be a poet right now, because, just getting to just at any point, just read, and it's just there. And some people, people I've known for years, just a really good friend of mine randomly hopped into this Instagram conversation / reading I was having yesterday with John Sands. And she was like, yo, it was great to hear you read your stuff. I'm going to pick up your book. And it's like, I know this person's like on my mailing list and sees my posts and all this, but she's living her own life. She's navigating her own stuff. And so that's what's great about it is that, so I'm really grateful as in terms of being a playwright, a theater artist. It's been really trippy. And I've had to really rethink what that means, because so much of our industry is tied into, not necessarily doing it, but tied into the number of seats that you can, that you want to sell and And so that's been a little crippling. So I've been doing a lot more of that kind of work in the digital space too. But it's been a productive time. But it's changed the nature of some of my work a bit. But the poetry I'm finding still translates. So I'm very grateful for that.
Absolutely. And I'm going to just another shout out to Facebook and to everyone watching if you've got some more questions. But it looks like we're about to wrap up. And the question coming in is, do you have any collaborations in the works with other artists or new projects coming out?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Ton. He's been helping. So I'm doing a lot more of these virtual readings through the rest of the year. So please, everybody, keep up with me on all the things. I mean, that's the best way to know. I do a weekly email blast to my mailing list because every week is different. I'm doing a lot of virtual panels and I have virtual plays that are premiering. So I have a play that I wrote called A People's History of Looting. And I actually barely call it a play. I call it like a like a sort of lyrical, theatrical, digital mixtape. And the very talented Perone Yousefzada directed that in a group of five MFA students from SUNY Purchase. And we did it all virtual. And I just watched the dress rehearsal of it today. It's really good. And so that's coming up soon. I think it's going to run like 3 or 4 times online. I'm doing, Kevin Koval, as I mentioned, and I have a weekly video podcast that we do on Vocalo Radio, which is out of Chicago, but it's on their Instagram page, so anybody can watch it anywhere. That's called The Same Old New School. And we talk about hip hop, art, and the week, and politics and everything, and everything from like, we're big AOC stands. So, all her, we always find a way to tie what she's doing back into her love of hip hop and being from the Bronx. What else am I up to? Just, doing a lot of, and my work at the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center at Colorado College is keeping me extremely busy. We're doing a lot of, we're trying to pivot, explore the digital realm and really just provide for artists. We just put out a really great thing called the 3x3 projects, where we funded artists from New Mexico and Colorado across all disciplines to work together to create, web-based work. And so it's range everything from like poetry and dance, collage things to there's a great photo series. It's photographs and poetry by Jessica Lopez, who's the former Albuquerque poet laureate, and also Bobby Lefebvre, who is the Colorado poet laureate. And so all of that's available on our website, fac.coloradocollege.edu. So yeah, I'm doing tons of stuff. I mean, if folks are feeling me and want to keep up with what I'm doing, please, I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. I'm on Instagram at Idris Goodwin, and I have a mailing list. So doing lots of stuff, and really trying to put on for the region. I'm very happy to be back in Colorado. It's a great place to be an artist, and I'm really trying to collaborate with folks to tell our story, as from our part of the world. Quick shout out to my homie Juan Morales as well, who has also been part of your festival and is a good friend of mine from Pueblo.
And also worth mentioning that Bobby Lefebvre will be performing with us next weekend. So
see what I'm saying?
Tune in for that.
Full circle.
We've got one more comment coming in from Facebook.
Yeah.
And that's that the Cultural Enrichment Center in Fort Collins is actually using your book to teach young Black youth how to write rhymes and to understand poetry. So it's neat the ways that your work can just, be everywhere and then touch different people.
Honored.
And so I really want to thank you so much for joining us, Idris.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, y'all. This is really dope. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I want to thank, again, our sponsors. I want to thank y'all for showing up. The next session we have is Biggest Little Farm. So feel free to stick around for that. If you'd like to purchase Idris's books, go to oldfirehousebooks.com/bookfest2020. Book plates are available from select authors, and please indicate in the comment section of your order if you're interested in a signed copy. And finally, please go to focobookfest.org and fill out the survey. It really helps us to guide us in planning for future book festivals, and we look at everything and take it all very seriously. So thank you all so much for joining us, and look forward to the rest of the book festival.